Welcome to Mondays with Holly. Today I want to talk about sketchnoting and story maps. Story maps are intended to help improve comprehension, and there's many times where I have used a story map that has spaces on a page where I'm supposed to put the information in, such as setting, the main characters, the plot, and so on, and they may be connected in weird ways that do not follow my story. So instead, I choose to sketchnote because I do not have to follow that format. However, I could choose to if it would fit for my story. So as I get ready to read the story, for my sketchnote, I want to know that it ties up to that particular story. So I need a title. So I use the title of the story and I put it bold and big on the top of the page. I might even include a frame to go around it to make it stand out a bit more, so my eye is drawn right to it. And of course I always want to include the author of that story to give them credit, but also I might want to read some other things by that author later on, so my sketch notes will help me capture that. And if I have to do a citation for a report or something, I might want to go ahead and put the year down here to give me an idea of the main parts to help me locate that story again should I need it, or to share it with others. Okay, so as I begin reading, I like to sketchnote as I go along. And so usually the first thing I find out when I read is where the story is taking place. And in particular, this story that I'm going to share with you now in my sketchnoting is taking place in a big city. So we have tall skyscrapers, and perhaps I haven't been to that city before, so I might just go ahead and label it and not worry about having specifics of what might be in that city, in that setting, unless it's something that's very important to the story. Then I might want to include something along there. If I cannot draw it, then I want to definitely label it as such. So as I'm reading at the very beginning of the story, I'm getting the where, and that's giving me my setting, and I'm also beginning to know about who is involved in this story. And as I read, I start developing a mental picture of what that person may look like. And so I'm just going to use some techniques here that I got from Graham Shaw in a TEDx video. And just by watching that video, I was able to begin drawing faces that had more meaning for me. And I have certainly enjoyed using these faces much more in my drawings. So if you're interested in that video, there's the address there. Now for my story, this is Sue. And Sue is in Houston. So I've got my setting, I've got my main character, and now I'm going to start collecting other elements of that story so that I can understand it better and make connections with that story. So I'm going to be looking for theme, I'm going to be looking for plot, I'm going to be looking, what's the problem? All these can be identified in sketches that I do, but in the beginning I may not know. I might just have an idea of what it is, and I want it to develop some more before I say anything else. So I might just want to write it down. And I can do that either by bulleting things that are happening. They might be sequential, so I want to make sure that I write them down, or it could be according to a timeline. And if that's the case, I can certainly draw a timeline and capture those events as they go along on that timeline. And there's other things that can happen in a story too. We might find that the main character is going to have to make some type of a voyage, a trip, in some way collecting things in the story, pieces of the story that help them reach to their conclusion and the story's end. So I can capture those along the way and draw them as well. And then some stories I might find are kind of cyclical. They feed upon themselves and they seem to keep coming back to the same thing. Now, a picture book that does that is If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And that works very well into here. But if we're reading something that has many more pages than that, it might take a while for that to develop and for us to discover that. But when we do, we're going to want to identify that in our sketch notes. So I like to use sketch notes during my reading to help capture these things, and then I can also use them afterwards to talk about the story, either in a small group or with a bunch of other people as we have a book discussion, if we've all read the same book, or sharing something along the same lines of the same themes. And it makes my ability to talk about the story much better because I have something to rely on without having to flip back through the book and through all the pages. So anyway, I hope that this has helped you think about how you can use story maps in your sketchnoting, and thank you for joining me today.